So, any questions from anyone? This gentleman here.
This isn't a project question, but I mean, given that the largest announcement you made tonight is that we're going through the readmission bill, how long do you expect that to take?
Well, that's a better question for Peter, actually.
Yeah, readmission will, I think we are going to call the AGM for the 24th of July. Readmission will be done on the 25th, providing that it's, I mean, there will be no suspension because the document will be, the readmission document will be out tomorrow.
Okay.
No suspension. No suspension. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
You understand the reason for readmission is?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's good, positive.
Yeah. You want us to drill, right?
Yeah.
Anyone else? This gentleman.
Are you looking into Nigeria?
We haven't as yet. I mean, look, we've looked at projects in our pipeline in Nigeria, but we haven't as yet found one that's a fit with us. Yeah. You've got some for us?
Gentleman in the back over there.
In terms of the net present value, there's some very fanciful figures in all the documents we've seen running into billions, and yet your market cap's only 24 million. You also talked about capex of 14 million. Can you tell us what's your cash burn?
Our cash burn is about 200K a month, 180, 200K a month. The net present values you see reported in the CPRs that have been represented up here are, it's kind of hard to visualize because what they do is they put them on a sensitivity scale of P10, P50, P90, P90 being the smallest, P10 being up in the stratosphere. We present the P50 numbers for sake of conservatism. What they mean are they're what we call indicative success case economics, indicative success case valuations. They are the cumulative cash flow of a P50 cash flow forecast assigned to a given project should the project be successful. So in other words, if you're prospecting for oil and gas and you look at, you've got a prospect where you can risk the hydrocarbon system and determine that there's a good chance of an accumulation existing, what's the next question you're going to ask yourself? What's it worth? And how do you determine what it's worth is a function of the money you put into it to help de-risk it, ultimately drill it, and then later develop it. And if you put a cash flow forecast together that extends out the life of the PSA, in our case 25 years, that cumulative amount of cash generated at whatever discount rate you want to use represents what its value is today in terms of, if you start with an effective date today. Right? A lot of people use a discount rate of 10%. I used to say that was 2.5% of inflation, but not anymore. But I mean, just to kind of adjust the value of that cumulative cash flow back into today's dollars as a function of the effective date you use to start that cash flow forecast.
Are you anticipating another round of fundraising before the farming takes place at some stage later on this year?
We have active funding strategies. We're plenty capitalized right now, and we're open to possibilities. But at this stage, there's a number of directions we can go with our funding strategy. Right now, we're about 38% cash to market cap. So we're plenty well funded at our burn rate. And you make a point about our market cap. What is it? 28, 29 million. Sterling, what, 42, 45 million US, something like that. The value, the increase in share price will be a function of the reclassification of these prospective resources into contingent resources until the host governments actually approve our development plans, and then they'll find themselves reclassified or converted into proven developed producing, proven undeveloped, probable, and possible. So it takes time. And that 28 million, you'll see that increase. We're very, very confident.
Any more questions from anyone? This gentleman.
We saw on the Danica or on Denmark slides, there's a lot of that green open door area. Why have that presumably means it hasn't been licensed? Why has Denmark been so slow?
I think there's I think most of it is licensed. We just didn't annotate it up there. And I don't know what the number of open licenses are out there. Do you? I don't think there are any.
Actually, no. On June 22nd, 3 licenses became open.
So very recently, yeah.
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 But we've looked at them. Many of them are offshore
Yeah.
and quite expensive, that are probably beyond our capability.
Yeah.
Do you see any companies currently in the public interest that are of the sort of size that you aspire to be in 3 or 4 years' time?
You know, somebody asked me once, how much would you like us to pay for your company? And the answer I gave them was, as much as I can get. You know, how large would I like for us to be? As large as we can get.
How much do you, well, yes.
You know, I look to be, honestly, in 2 to 3 years' time, you know, people ask me this question a lot. Usually it's in connection with oil price. You mentioned this earlier. You know, when I start shooting out oil prices, what I do is I determine flat decks to use for the basis of valuation, so I can build in upside for our potential success. To be accurate in the next 6 to 12 months in oil price, all one has to do is look 6 to 12 months behind us, put yourself at that point in time, determine where you would be in the margin of difference today. You know, I look for us to be, in terms of market cap, certainly over 100 million in the next year, the next 8 months to a year. That's 100 million sterling, and then I look for it to grow up from there materially as we begin to get results in from our drilling. I mean, our confidence level in Denmark is not if gas is there, but how much is there. Our confidence level in Belize is material. You know, we take a very responsible look at what it is we can handle. I don't think there will be any way you'll see our company go out and drill in 5,000 feet of water, an exploration well, where the cost of the well is twice our market cap. It just won't happen. You know, we have certain thresholds that we have internally as to what we will and won't do. And, you know, we've got a team of directors of very, very experienced people that, that question hard some of the approaches we consider. And I have to be very honest with you, after considerable discussion, I think we're always taking a reasonable approach towards limiting risks, maximizing our access to upside, and doing what's right for the future growth of the company.
Being sensitive all the time to
There's-
changing conditions.
So there's another question at the back quickly, I think.
If you make a discovery in Belize, how soon do you see yourself going into production? And following on from that, if you do go into production, do you see yourself then using the money from that to finance further development of the company in general?
If we drill a discovery well in Belize, what we'll first do after about a 20-day well test, what we'll do is we'll drill the well, complete it. We'll bring in a small workover rig to put it on test while we slide the drilling rig over a reasonable distance to drill an offset appraisal well, all while we're waiting for a 3D crew to show up. What you'll see us do in Belize is we will go as soon as we can into a debt facility. That would mean that as soon as we demonstrated what the EUR, the estimated ultimate recoverable volume of oil and gas is, or is going to be, coming out of the ground, and once we've demonstrated to the financial institutions, we've resolved the, you know, the midstream transportation and marketing solutions, where we can then demonstrate generation of net income, I think we really will have no problem putting together a debt facility, requiring us to put little or no equity down further beyond that point for the development of that asset. So you will see us move along at a fairly rapid rate. If we make a discovery on the first well, we slide that well over, begin an appraisal well, and then probably bring in a second rig and continue to step up our drilling operation.
But how long is that process?
From discovery until what, debt finance? You know, in Belize, it's not really going to be that big of a, not that big of a window. There's a lot of what ifs. You know, it depends on the size of the accumulation, the production rate. You know, we just don't see any issues with the Belize government. We work very, very closely with them. Usually from the time, I mean, I'll give you my own forecast. From the time of discovery until we offset and appraise and put in a midstream transportation solution to the point of which we can then begin to report net income, I would say not less than 6 months. There's a lot of construction work, mobilization, permitting, a lot of government approval. You get them in the picture, make them part of the process, this sort of thing. But it's fairly rapid. They're shallow potential accumulations.
So there's one just a bit further back first, and then.
So you said that you reassessed all the seismic. If you're so sure that this stuff is there, why hasn't somebody else already taken it?
Good question. That regional seismic was shot on a regional. It was regional acquisition. It was long lines shot by PGS. And what we did when we looked at that seismic and reprocessed it, we actually applied a processing technology called AVO, amplitude versus offset, which is really determining a seismic response to gas. And in doing that, we actually determined a seismic response to gas. This is something our predecessors didn't do. And I suspect that was the case because there wasn't a very apparent market for gas. You're talking about back in the 80s. And since then, you know, I've been all over the region. There are gas plants, utility plants, this sort of thing. And George has done somewhat of an initial market survey out there where we've actually got letters or expressions of interest from buyers at about $9.60 per MMBTU. So there's quite an economic market out there.
Okay, I think we just have a couple more questions, I think. Gentleman at the back.
As a resource in Belize, do you think it's got the potential to emulate Colombia as a resource size?
Similar types of geology, carbonate geology, dolomite reservoirs, potentially. I think that Belize has, you know, there's a technical secret, some people call it a misnomer. It's very hard to image the subsurface in Belize because what it is you have a large carbonate, shallow carbonate limestone sequence which has a karsting, which is kind of an erosional cavernous effect within it. And then below that large limestone, you often have interbedded dolomite sequences, which is your reservoir, right? Which is very similar to that there in Cusiana and these areas in Colombia.
Colombia's proved to be massive, hasn't it?
In many areas. But the secret is, or I call it the secret, the mystery is, it's hard to image these dolomite sequences, because what happens is your source signal in seismic intersects these caverns and you lose it, and then all of a sudden you get a bunch of distortion and noise below it. Our predecessors out there in Spanish Lookout actually didn't know what they had because they couldn't image what was below it. So what we did to overcome it was changed our parameters to enable ourselves to better image it, learning from their mistakes.
Okie doke. Just one more here, this gentleman.
You mentioned moving out to an appraisal well if you're successful on B-Crest.
Mm.
That's going to be using the rig that was going to go on to the A prospect. Does that then form one of the 3 wells you've got, commitment wells?
Well, you know, I think what we'll do if we're successful with B-Crest is pick up a second rig and get after it. Our whole plan here is to maximize the dollar increase in value per dollar invested, and that doesn't involve, you know, slowing your work program down. What we'll do is we'll look at our funding strategy, go to sources of funding, hopefully without placing any equity to it, you know, to a debt facility, to help accelerate that. All we need is, you know, good results from our well test to get there.
Bill, I read somewhere when I was researching that there was something in place from B&E that offered to buy oil from us at WTI prices.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, B&E has, Belize Natural Energy is our neighbor. They have a producing field that produces about 4,000 barrels a day. They've been producing since 2006. They have an amazing apparatus. They've got a big production facility, stock tanks, trucks that take their oil about 80 kilometers to a deep water port, and they export everything to the U.S. And Obviously, we have a very good relationship with B&E, and B&E would more than love to contract their transportation facility to us. And to be very honest with you, it's been seriously discussed within the company to contract them to do that and pick up our oil FOB our facilities, you know, up in Blue Creek.
Just one more here, I think.
Have you decided on a contractor yet? Have they got specific knowledge?
Yes and yes. You know, we've decided on one, and we're in the middle of negotiations with them. And you know, I've learned in my experience is that, you know, it's not in the company's best interest to say who it is before you've got their signature on it, because then a few things can change and up goes the price of tea in China. So it's better just to leave it unsaid. A news flow will elaborate on that in the future. We've already indicated here clearly that we will be making the election to drill as a function of this RIAD, and then thereafter you'll learn all the details.
Sorry, one last one.
Assuming lift costs, transportation costs, royalties, how much do you expect to get per barrel of oil?
The indication from us from a post-OPEX standpoint are WTI plus or minus 50 cents a barrel. FOB our facility. I expect that to actually drop WTI less about $3 to $5 a barrel by the time the transportation contracts get signed. This is what people say when they try to get you to do business with them. But the operating costs themselves, you know, these are going to be on, you know, electric submersible pump, beam pumps, progressive cavity pumps, which will be used to extract the oil out of the ground. And those are when your OPEX cost to about, you know, about $4 a barrel. So the net back would be somewhere in the region of WTI less 10.
So just one more then. Sorry.
Ricky.
The seismic base camp, are we going to be using it as a drilling base camp as well?
That picture of that base camp there will be our technical offices, our management offices, logistics offices. The drilling people will be rotating in and out of there. It's actually a brand new facility that's just beautiful. And it's where's George? It's what? George, it's what? How far from A and B, Chris?
It's another 10 kilometer.
It's great. It's really, really neat.
Right. Just say thank you again for all coming. I think it's been a very informative evening. There are drinks next door in the library for everyone and some refreshments. All the guys here will be available to answer any additional questions. And thank you again for coming.
Thank you.